I had a good crew. Saturday we had a big. So our spring breaks were kind of shuffled around this year because of some testing scheduling for the schools. Um, but so we usually have a cookout like the week before,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll go in and I'll barbecue. I'll make a bunch of pulled pork and smoked chicken. Just have a good time. So it's a lot of work. It's one of those things where like I cook for the people. Nobody else does anything. I don't have my fellowship deacons do anything.
You doing
It's
all of it?
I just do it all.
Do you like that? You enjoy it?
So I enjoy cooking a lot. Kind of gives me a chance to do something a little different.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get this shared here real quick while we wait on Aaron.
So is internet cut out on him?
I think so. Because I like went to pop up his little countdown, and then all of a sudden, he went black. His screen went black. Everything went dark. So anyway, we had a bunch of barbecue on Saturday. Had a really good service on Sunday morning. A good turnout. I don't know, man. Our it's been kind of crazy. We had our new members dinner a few months ago, and I think we set up over 100 chairs for our new members dinner.
Oh wow!
And and we're having 160 or 170 people. 100 of those are new from March of 2020.
Wow.
We have like a completely different church now than we did before all this mess. So it's really interesting.
That's a lot of new members.
It is. And it kind of makes me wonder, who are we missing? Who are we kind of overlooking that, that should be here, but isn't?
Like people that, old members that have kind of fallen away, you don't see them anymore. Is that what you're thinking?
Right.
Aaron, are you back?
I'm back.
What happened to you?
I just took a sabbatical.
Short sabbatical.
Short one.
That's the way to do it.
It was good. Felt good. Now my internet crashed. My internet's like hasn't been 100% since the tornado landed near my house.
Tornadoes will do that. Hey, did you know that you left like a set of Frisbee golf discs in the back of my car?
I gave those to you.
I don't even remember that. Did you say anything to me about it?
Nope. I just threw them in there with the generator.
Yeah, when I went to get the generator out, I was like, I wonder if he did that on purpose.
Those came with a gift that I got from the Bowers. And they are the cheapest, oldest. They're not old. They're just like super cheap, really bad Frisbees. And I have so many. And
he's gifted them to you.
Yeah,
I figured your kids would play with them.
Yeah, they'll have a good time.
You can put them in the trash.
We'll take it over to the park. Thanks. I didn't know. I was so tired when we got to the car Sunday afternoon, and it was like the whole day was kind of a blur. So when I looked that night, I was like, "Wait a minute."
Well, the Bowers.
Did he and I have a conversation about this, and I don't even remember?
They had a nice Frisbee golf basket that's been sitting in their garage for like a couple of years, and so he texted me if I wanted it. And I said, yeah. So I dumped it all out, set it up, and it came with like a set of... But they're like super hard plastic. So you hit a tree and they're going to shatter.
That'll be fun. That would actually be a fun game.
There you go. Who could shatter their disc first?
Yeah.
So one of the families that I play with here, they had this new disc that it's got like a rubber rim on it. Mm-hmm. But the inside is soft. So when you can throw it like we were in the gym throwing it, and when it would hit the wall, it would just collapse and drop straight down. So there's if you hit a tree, there's no deflection. It doesn't
Oh wow.
Is it a
bounce
frisbee golf
off.
disc or is it just a disc?
No, it is a
Is it licensed?
PDGA. It is PDGA licensed.
Wow.
Um,
I didn't know that they allowed dual plastic in. That's cool though. That sounds really cool.
well, if you're playing in a bunch of trees, it's really cool because I've lost a lot of discs by hitting a tree.
Sometimes you actually play the ricochet, which is kind of fun. But
I'm not that good.
Neither am I. I did shoot a -5 yesterday. I went and played.
Did you go to Pinnock
And,
Park?
I did, and I played the full 9, but only because there was a kid who was sitting on the frisbee golf basket, and I usually skip that hole because I don't want to play hole 9, but he was sitting on it, so I was like, hey, I'm trying to play the game here. So I made him get off. I'm that big of a jerk.
That's good. Yeah. Well, sorry I missed you. You were right by my house, but I was across town.
That's okay. I don't ever text you to think that you'll actually play. I always just text you just because.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beer.
Hey, good morning. This is Behind the Beards. And here on Behind the Beards, we take a look behind the scenes and try to reveal the things that you need to know about the minds and hearts of your ministers and ministry leaders. I'm Joshua Fowler, a preaching minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And my beautifully bearded brothers here, Aaron Partlow is a youth minister in Longview, Texas. And his comrade up there in Longview, Jody Garner, is a preacher. Aaron, that transition is going to make it almost impossible for me to edit when I go to pull the sound off of this. But
Perfect. That's how I
thank
wanted
you.
it.
That's right. What's going on today, guys? Y'all doing all right?
I am doing good.
You got your day off yesterday, right?
Well, it's usually Fridays, but I took it off because funeral. All weekend was consumed with presenting a funeral, and then Easter Sunday. Man, that was a stressful weekend. So yeah, I crashed yesterday. And just
I think I've talked about this a little bit, but it feels like Longview is a travel to congregation. It felt like our first service was plump. It was very full. And I have worked previously at the churches that I worked at, like the churches were a travel away from. So like everyone would leave and go see their family on Easter. And I felt like, at least I felt like at our first service, like it was like really full. So, and there was a lot of guests and visitors that I had never seen, which was like family and kin and stuff like that. So
yeah, and we had a lot of people gone as well.
And we had a lot of people gone. Like if people wouldn't have left, like it'd have been crazy.
So it's funny. I think the last time we had Jody on, we were coming up on Easter as well.
I think so.
I think I remember last time I was on here, I could barely talk. So it probably was spring.
Yeah, and I was in Mexico.
Yeah, I remember
on that mission trip. So it was fun. Easter. It was just time, right? With Easter here in our rear view. Yeah. There's something about Easter, man, that just of all the holidays, I feel more pressure around Easter than any of them to kind of be right.
It's the resurrection of Jesus. Come on now.
Come on.
It's kind of a big deal in our faith.
There is a lot of extra pressure. This year, though, I tried to relieve that pressure from myself by just, as I was praying and thinking about it, I was like, in a lot of ways, just prepare like you normally do on any Sunday, and just, let the word speak, and like I just tried to keep reminding myself, it's all right. It's not all on you. But in years past, I feel like I got to really put a little extra emphasis and tell a funny story to start off, and then something that's going to make everybody cry. Like it's got to be this great Easter sermon. But this year I didn't feel quite as much pressure, and it was just kind of a regular old sermon too. But leading into it, I felt a lot better.
Yeah, it's such a good truth to keep reminding myself of. Right, it's really not about you.
Yeah, it's not all on you to make or break Easter. That's what I've reminded myself.
Yeah, it's more on the Easter egg hunt going well. That's what people are really remembering.
From some people's perspective, yeah, that's what it's all about. And then there's other people that just really enjoyed the singing. So everybody's got their own unique take on what makes it a good Sunday, I guess. What makes it a good Easter Sunday.
I just like coming, showing up and seeing like just everyone, kids and everybody just, dressed up. And you got new clothes.
You'd be sorely disappointed in me every Sunday.
In you.
I am so dressed down for church.
It's okay.
Oh boy.
It's just kind of cool. You walk in, all the kids are, dressed, and everybody's got new dresses, and it's that first hint of spring. And so in the South, they're really big about when you can wear certain colors and certain fabrics and things. So,
yeah,
the seersucker suits
Colorful
show
day.
up on Easter, the bright colors, whites.
Yeah, bright color.
So it kind of just feels different when you come in. So
Yeah, there's definitely more energy and excitement in the room, and everything goes longer in the worship service.
yeah.
Did you hear Rodney when he was after the invitation song? He's like, "That was a good sermon, but you went a little long." I looked at the time. I was like, it was about 2 minutes longer than normal, but everything else was long that day.
Man, I don't know any preacher who preaches extra long when he gets a chance to preach.
Nobody, right?
Mr.
Nobody.
38 minutes up here. Was it 38 minutes or something?
30, it was 38 some odd.
I preached a long sermon the last time I preached. And
We had a couple sermons in one, but it was good.
I don't even know why it was so long.
As long as nobody walked out, right?
You were nervous about your final point, you said, so you kept going.
That's right. That was the
You
problem.
just kept avoiding it.
Yeah. Keep talking, and then you won't have to say it.
Well, it looks like we're out of time. We'll finish this sermon in 12 months when I get back up here.
Well, what in the sabbatical is that? I'm looking forward to the conversation today. Aaron came up and was like, "Hey, Jody's taking a sabbatical. You want to talk about sabbaticals?" I was like, "Yes," because I've never had a sabbatical. I would love to take a sabbatical and have no idea what, where to even start there.
Right.
I appreciate that, Jerry. I was wearing white pants on Sunday morning, so
nice.
I think
brave.
Jerry Germany could pull off white pants, maybe.
I get nervous just wearing a white shirt. I have that white behind the beards polo, and I am stressed out all day.
Yeah, my white behind the beards polo is already ruined because I will ruin white.
I've wore it like once, so that's why mine's still good.
We're gonna be talking about sabbaticals. How do you prepare? What do you have? What is a sabbatical? I guess we can kind of start there. What is a sabbatical, and who needs one? So, Aaron, what's a sabbatical?
I think this kind of hits me a little bit close to home because we're doing this lesson series with the teens about the 7 deadly sins. And just talking about these from a different angle and stuff like that. And, we talked about sloth this last week, and I think this really hit the kids home because all of them, they were like, "Oh, it's being lazy." And I was like, it is being lazy. But it's actually not really about just like, hey, you need to mow the lawn, but you watched cartoons all day Saturday. It's more about, hey, you're being lazy in your spiritual life. You're not practicing your spiritual disciplines. And I think, for me, a sabbatical is one of those moments where, like as a preacher or as a minister or whatever, it's that moment for you to really catch up on like late spiritual work. For me, it's a month for you to just like go into a super intense catch up with God and a spirit tuning kind of month. And so, and this is my opinion. This is like how I would define it. And so you take this month to disconnect from everything else and only connect with God. And you do this in multiple ways, and you try to do this in multiple ways, and there's multiple ways to prep and stuff like this. But at the end of the day, that's what I would define it as. It is the time period that's set out for you where your entire goal is to be silent when you need to be silent, to speak when you need to speak, but that communication is with God. And so you're really working through your spiritual disciplines just to kind of connect really with God and to find direction and guidance in what we should be, what you should be doing in your ministry. So
Yeah, I
that's
like
how
that
I would define
connection
it.
with I like that connection with sloth. I hadn't really thought of that before, or hadn't really put those two together of being lazy spiritually, and how sabbaticals put us in there.
Well, that came when I was like doing more research about it, and they were like, "Well, it's turned into this," but when it was originally like described, it was because hey, you're not praying, you're not fasting, you're not doing this, and so the sin of sloth is derived from that idea of being lazy in your spiritual disciplines.
So Jody, I guess you're about to take a sabbatical. When somebody says, "Hey, you're due for a sabbatical," which is awesome, by the way, that your elders set that in place for you guys.
Yes,
Not
it
something
is.
that we typically think about in the outset of getting started with the place or a church, but how's that how does Aaron's idea there kind of fit in with what you have in
Yeah.
your mind?
Well, I was in his class last week when he talked about the spiritual sloth. So
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So I had a feeling I knew where you're going with that. But yeah,
Teacher evaluation.
when I started here at Pine Tree, sabbatical was not a part of the package, but that's something that's been talked about for about 5 years. And we had a few elders that kind of took the ball and ran with it and started researching and trying to figure out what they want to offer for us. So every church that offers a sabbatical is probably a little different. I can tell you how the way we're set up is basically every 5 years, they're giving me a 1 month sabbatical. So some churches do every 7 years, you get 3 months, or, just depends on how they set it up. So I get 1 month, and my 5 years is up this June. So I'm taking it in July. Like, I'm taking it pretty quick. I have a year to take it, but I'm taking it like right away. And so there's so many practical things you could talk about with Sabbath. So I'll come back to maybe a definition, but I'm taking it in July because my kids are out of school and it works well with the rest of my family schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And what I told the elders, I don't want to take it in October and then I'm going off to do some solo week and my wife is stuck here trying to get the kids up, get them to school. If they get sick, she's all on her own. Like, that just seems selfish. So I wanted to make sure when I'm taking my solo week, she's, kids aren't in school and she has the freedom to travel or do whatever. So that's why summer for me, I had the freedom within that year to choose whatever month I wanted. And that's why I chose July. So it fit well there. But, the idea is just to rest, like Aaron kind of said this, but reconnect with God, just stop all working. And it's kind of the same idea of taking a Sabbath day each week where you're not checking your work email, you're not working on sermons or anything ministry related. It's that idea just extended for a whole month.
Well, ministry is different than any of the other jobs that I have worked. I spent 11 and a half years in the car business, and we were never. I mean, sabbatical. If you would have talked about taking a sabbatical there, that would have kind of been like, I don't think so. We'll give you a permanent sabbatical. Kind of
Yeah.
But the nature of the job is so different. The nature of the work is so different. I think about what we do as ministers, that week after week, if you're preaching one sermon or two sermons or teaching a couple classes and then planning activities, there's just so much of yourself that gets poured into the work that you're doing. If you aren't taking the time to really rest and recover from that and to be filled, it's hard to do on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
You can find those little places to get that done. The Pine Tree podcast is one of those things that on Monday morning, I always kind of tune in and listen just to find those moments where you're getting filled by someone else and kind of receiving some teaching as well as giving it. But to get to this place where you can just put everything aside and really replenish, your soul and your spirit, it demands a little more out of you than just regular work. So when I think that's when we talk about ministry. There's such an importance there with taking that Sabbath rest, and it's not like we're just going and doing nothing, right?
Yeah,
It's an intentional form of rest.
it is. Yeah, they have it split up like a 4-week split on how they want me to spend my time. So it's not just a go wherever you want. Or I mean, it is kind of like that. It's intentional about how they want me to spend that time.
I think that's really important for if you don't know about sabbaticals, like if this is the first time you've ever heard anyone talk about one, yeah, it's not like a month-long vacation. It's not like you're like, hey, I'm gonna go to Cabo for a month, and that's gonna be my sabbatical. It's intentional and it's planned out, and I think when I compare it to spiritual disciplines, like there is that disciplined part of it, like it's intentional and discipline that comes with that. And I think that goes with like a minister when you're trying to take like a sabbatical day, your Sabbath day, your day off. Like it takes discipline to be able to do it. It takes discipline throughout the week to be able to prep for that day. And then it takes discipline for that day to like not check like your emails or to really not answer somebody back or something like that.
Just kind of jumping in there, I've done a good job the last few years of not checking work email or working on sermon on I call Friday my Sabbath day because that's my only true day off. But man, everybody just texts now. So there's been several Fridays this year where I woke up before 8 a.m. I think there should be a rule that nobody can text before 8 a.m. But there's like texts going different committee we were on together or deacons, and I'm like, man, on a Friday morning, like my day off, I can't just wait to respond to that email tomorrow. It's coming through my text messages. So that's why the burner phone idea is a good idea for sabbatical where only a few people have your number. But anyways, back to what you were saying, Josh, I feel like, people that in the ministry world, for me at least, my family doesn't get to experience like what most families would get to experience on the weekend because for me, I don't know if it's just the way I operate, but Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, I got to start getting in gear for Sunday. Like I review out loud multiple times. Sometimes I'm working 3 or 4 hours on finalizing the sermon and like reviewing over it, tweaking things in the PowerPoint. So we're never going out and doing something big on a Saturday night. My kids don't get to experience that. Sunday's pretty much a full day. So that's where like the sabbatical ideas, when we work during the week, we get a Friday off, but then weekends are just completely filled up, especially when you have a funeral. The sabbatical is almost a way of saying we're going to give you those days back with your family and you can just rest and calm down. And it's hard to get it out of your system too.
Yeah, and you're taking yours solo, right?
So the way they have it split up is a 1 week with my wife, so just the two of us, 1 week with my whole family, 1 week by myself, and then 1 week either going to some kind of conference, which there's nothing offered that I can find in July, or reconnecting with like your family from back home. So I think we're going to try to stay in the area we grew up in and just be with friends and family there. So it's kind of a 4-week split of only one of those weeks will I be by myself. I may kickstart it and go off somewhere for a day or two on the very beginning. But yeah, that's kind of the split that they have it. And from everything that I've read, studied, and what people talked about, it takes about 2 weeks to really be on sabbatical. Like you're still thinking about, you're still feeling this like
guilt,
and you're feeling this pressure, like you need to do something. And it like there's something inwardly that's going on that it takes about 2 weeks to really settle down. So what I've been told, you're not really on sabbatical inwardly until like 2 weeks into it.
I feel like I do experience some of that. Like I feel like I experienced that in August. After summer, and summer's so busy as a youth minister, and you do a whole bunch of stuff. The kids are out, and people are like expecting you to just always be doing something with the teenagers every single day. That like it takes 2 weeks of August for me to go, okay, what do we have next? What's next on the like? Okay, what do I have this week? What do I got to make sure I have everything planned for to go? Oh, like the kids are back in school. we're gonna cool off because I got to let the kids get back to used to being back in school. That I have to get back into like a regular swing of things. So it's interesting to think like, yeah, it takes like a couple weeks to be able to find your sabbatical groove.
Yeah.
Well, so we have a friend that from Houston that took a sabbatical, and he went out to this monastery. And I told him, I said, man, if I'm real honest, like being in a monastery by myself in silence kind of terrifies me. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really sure I would really like the person I would have talking back to me in those moments when you can really, you're forced to be really honest with
Yeah. That's
yourself. And
I've actually heard that from others before, that's all your stuff that you've kept repressed and buried usually comes to the surface. You have to deal with it when you're sitting in silence for a while. So I'm kind of preparing.
Like, would you leave your phone and your watch in the car and take like an analog watch?
Well, I'm going to try to have the burner phone, so I'm not really using it, and get an old school. You don't need a watch if you're on solo week. There's no time to be anywhere.
That's true.
So how are you preparing for this sabbatical personally?
So there's a lot of preparation. It's a lot of work just to get there. I mean, you start with the elders did the sabbatical covenant with me, so I signed my agreement. They signed their end. We prayed over me. So that was like step one. Step two was I had to give them a list of names for them to approve for guest speakers while I'm gone. So we talked through that probably in February at the elders meeting, and then I started setting up that schedule. So just getting speakers lined up, working with everybody's schedule, just so that I can be gone is one thing, and then trying to figure out when we're going to go where. So I've talked to 1128 Ministries. Is that what it's called? I don't know if I've heard of that. But a guy named Trey Finley, he's one of the directors there. I had a Zoom session with him one day, and through that, he gave me connections of different host families that will offer a place to stay. Is that Sam in the background?
No, it was Lauren.
Oh, yeah. So it gets really expensive to be gone for a whole month. So he offered, some options on like people that will host you. So we ended up, we're going to go to Pagosa Springs, Colorado the third week, because that's when this house was available. So we just got to pay for a cleaning fee and pay to get there. So that determined when we're going there with our family, because that was the available date. I found another free resource in Louisiana. It's like 3 cabins, and you can come stay for free if you're a minister and you get approved, and they provide meals for you. So that's not available until the second week in July. So
Josh is like, "Where's that at?"
Yeah, I can send it to you. You should look into it.
What town it was in or near?
I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's 2 hours from here. I'll send you the website.
All right.
Anyways, I could go on forever about it, but just preparing takes a long time. Like getting speakers, figuring out where you're going to go, how much money you want to spend, and things to that nature. But yeah, reading books. I've been slowly reading through this book right here. It's called Invitation to Retreat by Ruth Haley Barton. And I think this is really helping to prepare me for what to expect and how to slow down and go from, like you were saying, Aaron, in the summertime, you're like in 5th gear going full speed.
Right.
And all of a sudden, for sabbatical, you're just like, you put it in neutral and you just stop. You get a little whiplash and you got to learn to settle down.
It's a bad example, but, I grew up, I worked like 2.5, 3 years at a Jack in the Box, and it was a very unethical place at some points because I'd have 2 cooks and then I was the only person who spoke English as my first language. And so for like 6-7 hours, I ran drive-through and front counter, and you're wearing those headsets and you've got beeping and you've got all stuff going on and you're trying to like be organized and get orders out and everything. And I remember like I'd go home and it'd be like 2 a.m. and I would wake up and I would be like, I gotta get that guy, I gotta get that order out.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, I'd have to like tell myself, no, you're at home, you're in bed. And sometimes I'd still be in work clothes because I'd be tired. I'd just crawl into bed. and I'd have to remind myself like that I'm at home, that I'm in bed. I'm not really hearing the beepings of like the fryer going off and stuff like that. And that's like, I feel like that's kind of like what you're going through the first couple weeks of like your sabbatical is like, oh, I hope it's gonna happen this weekend. Like I hope everything's fine on Sunday. And so you've got to like almost retrain yourself to be like, no, I need to be focused on this. Like surely a church full of adults can function for like 4 weeks without one person, right?
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage people, like, if you value your minister and you value the work that they do and you don't want to replace that guy every 5 years, like contend on their behalf for this kind of time every once in a while.
Yeah.
Because look, and this is I think this is the flaw that I see in myself and many people who are like me. We chose this calling not only because we believe in it, but because it's something that we want to invest in. And if your minister is doing their job, they're going to invest all of themselves in that work, and in that church and in those people. And there's something about asking for a month off that feels selfish and it feels weak.
Yeah.
It feels like, man, if I go here and I ask this, it just doesn't feel right, even though it is right. And I think maybe that's kind of Satan's way of setting us up for failure, is by refusing to ask for the time that we need. Because how insane is it that we think we don't need this or we shouldn't be taking it when Jesus regularly took that time to retreat
I was about to say that.
into the mountains, into the hills, into the quiet places for that one-on-one time with the Father.
I was about to say, like, I hate how much like I preach and I teach and I say those exact words, and yet like I struggle to like legitimately just take my watch and my phone off and just like be away and like truly be unplugged, because I'm like, but what if somebody needs me? Like, what if Lauren needs me? What if like the office needs me or something?
And there is a lot of work, but it's worth it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's worth it.
It's totally worth it.
I think that's a great point to people at your church. You know, if you want to keep a minister around for a while, contend on their behalf, because they're probably going to feel guilty asking for it, even though like our body and our soul will send signals that we need to rest. There is a guilt feeling of like, I just got to gut it out, and I don't want anybody to think I am lazy, or I can't cut it. So this is why it's been really nice here at Pine Tree. Is our elders, like I was a part of the initial conversation, but they took it and ran with it and gave it to me. I didn't have to beg for it, and hopefully we'll get one set up for Aaron as well in the near future. I'll contend for you, Aaron.
4 years.
Yeah. So
I'll take it in June.
There's that aspect, what you were talking about, and then also on our behalf, like when we're not preaching, like who are we when we're not performing? It sounds bad to say performing because I don't view it like a performance, but when you're doing a funeral or you're doing a Sunday morning sermon, you're up in front of people, and so you're prepping for that all week, and then all of a sudden you're not doing that. So who are you when you're just a regular person? That sounds weird to say. So what somebody challenged me to think on, that's what I'm trying to say, is they said when you reflect on this question during sabbatical, who am I if I'm not preaching? And that maybe in the silence when you try to figure that out, like who I think kind of lost who I am in a way. And
those questions are scary. And I feel like I recently, like being, I just hit 1 year at Pine Tree, and I feel like there's that gap in between jobs. And like you might have like a couple Sundays where like you're not like the youth minister because you haven't started your new job yet, and you quit your old job, and so it's like it's that feeling. I've expressed that with some people. Like it's very rare that I get to just go to church, because I'm always doing something, and I'm thinking about the sabbatical Sundays now. And I'm like, maybe that's a good idea. Like, that is a good idea. Maybe I should invest and really think about doing that, coming up or whatever. But yeah, those are good questions because because I rarely just get to go to church. If I'm going to a church, it's usually, I'm with teenagers, and I'm making sure my teens are doing good because we are on a mission trip or something like that, or I'm working, and so that's my Sunday morning at Pine Tree or something like that. So who am I if I'm not preaching, if I'm not the youth minister?
Yeah. Another question somebody gave me to reflect on was that one. And he said, you're used to giving all the time. So ministry, you're teaching somebody something, or you're listening to their problems and giving them advice, whatever it may be, or sitting with a family that just lost a loved one. So you're always kind of giving something. But he said, what's it like to receive? And that was all he asked. He's like, just think on that during the sabbatical. It's kind of like when Jesus wanted to wash their feet, and Peter's like, no, you can't wash my, like, what's it like to just sit there and let your feet be washed and receive a little bit?
Did you see that? Josh, I shared with you that TikTok, and it's pretty funny. It's like this guy, he wakes up, and it says, Peter every morning, and he's like, I'm going to impress Jesus today. And then he walks up, and Jesus is like, turn the other cheek. And he's like, oh. And he's like, it says, wiping blood off the dagger from cutting someone's ear off. And he's like, I'm going to impress Jesus today. And then he's like soaked, and he's like, why did you not believe? And then he's like, I'm going to impress Jesus today. And it just like keeps going on. And he's like, get behind me, Satan. And he's like, me? I was like, oh man, how we feel sometimes being a Christian.
Well, they have that meme that pops up every year about this time. It says, what would you do if you had one day left to live?
Right. Yeah.
And it says Jesus knew, and he washed people's feet. But
Wow.
but that's the mentality that we get into, of serving, and it's often difficult to be on the other end. I mean, I find myself in Peter's shoes, going, no, my Savior doesn't wash my feet.
Yeah.
So but to receive those things is tough. It's a difficult mindset for us to shift into. But it's so vital to being able to continue down, the path that we're on. Because you just simply, there's only so much you can pour out of a container, and it's empty. And if the container is empty, you can turn it over all you want. There's nothing, you just have nothing left to give.
Yeah. The well runs dry after a while, and
it does.
You gotta fill it back up.
Is there something specific that you, I don't want to say you anticipate, but that maybe you hope to gain out of?
It's kind of changed a little bit. I think I had big expectations maybe a year ago when I knew this was coming. Like, I'm going to have some special revelation that's going to change my life. More recently, here's what I'm kind of thinking. And who knows? I want to be open to however God leads me. So whatever happens from this may be totally unexpected. But so I'm listening to a book right now called At Your Best by Carrie Nieuwhof. I don't know if y'all have read it, but it's a good, helpful little book. And what drew my attention to it was a podcast with Annie Stanley and Carrie Nieuwhof about this book. And they talked about, they're like, sabbatical is nice, but it's not the solution to an unsustainable pace. They said the solution to an unsustainable pace is a sustainable pace. And so they're saying you can go on a sabbatical and get a break, but if you jump right back into the crazy busy life that you had before, where you're always available to people and your phone's ringing on a Tuesday night when you're trying to spend time with your family, or people are texting you at 7:30 on a Friday morning. Like, if you don't learn how to have firm boundaries and be okay with that too, like not feel like, oh, I have to respond because that's one of our deacons. Like, if you can't change that, then the sabbatical is just a nice break.
Right.
So my hope is that this will be really good for me and my soul, and who knows what God may teach me during this, but that before and especially after that, I can learn to rest even when I'm not on sabbatical.
Yeah, developing new habits.
Yeah.
I think of, like, if I was in your shoes, the thing that I would be hoping to get from it is, I remember what it's like to start somewhere new, where everything's fresh, everything's new, everything exciting, because there's just that newness that comes, because you're excited to impart these things that you've studied and learned, and all your stories are new. All of your illustrations are new. You don't have to kind of go through this. Man, have I said this before?
Yep.
And so just that fresh spirit that comes, when you're walking into that place, maybe for the first time or for the first year or two, where everything's just renewed.
Yeah, definitely. That is kind of like a 5-year mark of, if I were moving here, what would I want to do? What would I be passionate about? And you can kind of you can lose your passions when you're just going through the weekly grind of what's expected, what you have to do. So that what you're saying is, Eddie Sharp is a longtime preacher, and I talked to him about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
He said every 5 years he would kind of go away and just be with God and try to. He wasn't intentionally trying to do this, but in a way, like moving out. He was in Abilene, and then he would move back in mentally.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, all right, starting from scratch. What do I want to do in this city, in this community, with this church? And that was what he was advising me to do as well. It's like you come back from that sabbatical, and it's like you're moving there for the first time.
Wow, yeah.
Very cool.
What do you see? Like, what do you want to accomplish? So, yeah. Sabbatical. I'm still 2 months away. Are y'all going to interview me afterwards?
Yeah, I think so.
Depends on how it goes. Depends on if you decide to come back or not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's true. Hey, I can tell you one thing. We were talking before you started recording about done 6 funerals this year so far. So it's kind of worked out to about almost every other weekend. I'm still working because the funeral, meeting with the family, getting it ready, and then conducting the funeral. And what I keep telling myself is just hang in there. You're almost to July, and then you get to take a break. But I don't know if that's the healthiest way to live, because I can't. Once the first sabbatical is over, I got to wait 5 more years. So there probably is a much healthier way to take a Sabbath rest every week. Yeah,
and I like the philosophy of coming in to look for new habits and new disciplines.
Yep.
I think there's just something in the spiritual disciplines that we miss. And that discipline of rest, man, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and we don't make it easy on ourselves. And because we don't make it easy on ourselves, we open doors and pathways for the people around us to also not observe that discipline for themselves or to allow us to do that. And so, like I said, creating new pathways, new avenues, new habits.
And just kind of remembering maybe why we got in it to begin with. There's several resources I could share. One, there's a book by Wayne Cordero. I think it's called Leading on Empty, and he has a chapter on sabbaticals. And he mentioned Michael Jordan when he, went on these championships in the NBA.
You can go play baseball?
Quits and goes plays baseball.
Yeah.
Was terrible at it, or I don't know if he was terrible, but didn't work out too well. And then comes back and wins some more championships, but there was like a sense of renewal because he just tried something different. And
so Jody's going to come and be our children's minister for a year.
That's not what I'm saying.
And then jump in and be our come back and be our pulpit minister.
But I did like that example, and I'm piecing what Wayne Cordero said with somebody else. But they're like, you might use that time to find your new hobby. So not just coming back with better habits, but also like, here's something I enjoy doing that's not ministry related. And I didn't know I liked it until I was on sabbatical and had some extra time on my hands.
Yeah.
I can see Jody getting into whittling.
Whittling, yeah. Knitting or something. No.
Cross stitch. Needlepoint. Oh, yeah. We can find all sorts of things. Underwater basket weaving.
That would be
something else.
I wonder where
right?
that phrase originates from, because I feel like that's like a phrase that doesn't get used a lot today. But I remember growing up using that all the time as something ridiculous. Underwater
basket weaving.
Yeah,
I never heard that growing up.
What?
Different.
That's
Oregon.
Crazy. Must
That's
be an Oregon thing.
Well, we did it because that's what we said all the athletes going to college would major in, underwater basket weaving.
Underwater basket weaving.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You have a behind the beards moment, Aaron?
I don't. I think the behind the beards moment is. I think this is something that we don't think about. I think that there's. I think we hit a really hard point for me. That like there is a lot of guilt. It's not necessarily a bad guilt. Like we choose ministry because like we're very passionate about it, and I choose to not fully disconnect. I choose to worry about things if I'm on vacation and things like that, and I need to choose a healthier and a better way, and that kind of stuff. And so, a sabbatical is not just a vacation. It does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of soul work. You got to work on yourself, and you got to work on your soul, and you have an assignment, and that's to really like let go and really connect with God. And if we can help our ministers find that kind of a place, like, they're going to be able to connect better. They're going to be able to serve better. They're going to be in a better place. And so it's really for the health of the congregation.
Yep.
And even while saying that, like there's this instance, there's like a gnawing voice in the back of my head that says, man, when you say all that, that's just so selfish. It's just so selfish. And I never made that connection about like being Jesus's disciples and what it would have really felt like for Jesus to be like, all right, I'm going to wash your feet. And I probably would have been like Peter and been like, no, don't wash my feet. And then Jesus is like, I have to wash your feet. Well, then if you're going to wash my feet, wash my whole body. I don't need to do that. I just need to wash your feet. Hey,
get out of your own head.
I just need you to take a sabbatical. I just need you to take a day. I just need you to fully rest so that you can fully serve. And I think that's, for me, that was really home run, hard hitting for me, and has now made me rethink a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
Well
thanks
said.
for that.
That's good. Good thoughts.
And it's the other side of the people who are called to serve in these things, to serve in these positions. For me, it forces me to deal with the other side of my personality. The same thing that makes me good at what I do in serving the church is maybe the very same thing that makes me really bad at understanding what I need to continue doing that.
Wow.
And so when you say it is for the health and well-being of the church as a whole, sometimes we need to be forced to confront the thing we need most.
Yeah.
And to be given the permission to say, it's okay for you to take time to fill yourself so that you can continue doing what you've been called to do in this place. And sometimes we just need people to not only contend on our behalf, but force us to confront that truth. Because it's just not something that we've been trained to do and given permission to do.
It also makes me just think about like pastor accountability, and I need people to help in the congregation. Like as much as I preach from the pulpit or teach in my class about being accountable to your spiritual disciplines and moving through that, like I need people to come up to me and be accountable too. I'll always appreciate, I had a deacon of youth who, I sat there in front of the kids and I said, hey, we're going to Oregon for a week, but if you need me, just text me, call me, like I'll have my phone or whatever. And then he got up in front of the class and he says, so he lied. He is going to Oregon for a week, and if you need anything, you'll text and you'll call me because he'll be in Oregon for the week on vacation, spending time with his family, and we can take care of things.
Nice.
And at one point I was like, man, why are you talking over me like that? And then, now I look back at that and I go, man, that's true. Like, thank you for that. And I need people to help keep me accountable in that sense. Recently I had an elder come up to me and just say, hey, have you been taking your days off? Like, you look tired. And I was like,
Thanks.
He's like, when was the last time you had a day off? Like, do I need to just tell you to take a couple days off? And I was like, no, I have been taking. I didn't sleep well the last couple of nights, but I have been doing good with that. But
This
like,
is just
that's
how
nice.
I look. Sorry.
It's just I'm just naturally ugly. Okay. Anyway, I think that's great. Hey, we want to thank y'all for being here today. We appreciate you, and Jody, we appreciate you coming on and talking with us again. We look forward to catching up with you after your sabbatical and seeing how it went. Good and bad and messy, all the stuff. So But anyway, we want to thank y'all for being here today. We want to remind you of Galatians 6:9. That's something that is very close to our hearts at Behind the Beards. Don't grow weary in doing good. That's it, plain and simple. Just don't grow weary in doing good. Trust God and trust His plan and lean on Him for strength. This world is messy. Our life is messy. So allow Christ to use you to do something different, something good in His name. I'm Aaron, this is Josh, and this is Jody, and we will see you next week on Behind the Beards.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.